Dzień dobry, wprost z konferencji PSEW 2025 ze Świnoujścia. Witamy dzisiaj. Mamy fantastycznego gościa. Jest z nami pan Dominic Szanto, Head of Investment Management Offshore Wind z Northland Power. Hello, thank you for having us.
Thank you, very nice to meet you. Nice to be here.
As usual on such events, on such conferences, there's a lot of talks about, a lot of debates about politics and regulations and laws behind all the sector. So how do you assess Poland's progress in creating this regulation framework? Are we far behind, or maybe it's not that bad?
Well, at Northland Power, we look for three key things when we come to assess a new market to invest into. And one of the key aspects of that is regulatory environment. And particularly we look for stability, we look for long-term intentions from government, and we look to the government to deliver on those long-term intentions. And that really is what we have seen in Poland. Poland has some of the best track record over the last few years of delivering on its promises, delivering an offshore sector deal, which has very much brought stakeholders together and created an environment where we and our partner Orlen have been able to now start construction of our 1 gigawatt offshore Baltic power project, which is going into construction this year and will be fully operational in 2 years. So we very much hope this is a blueprint for the rest of the sector as it moves forward.
It's actually great to hear that we're not that behind with all the regulations, because maybe I am the glass half empty kind of a guy, but personally, for me, I think that we are a little chaotic when it comes to regulations. We create some regulations that serves as a starting point, and then we are trying to fix things as we go. So, am I being too negative?
I think that what is important about regulation is for governments to say what they're going to do and then deliver on what they say. And we've been really looking forward to the offshore wind CFD auctions, which have now been announced for this year. And the environment is actually extremely strong. And not just in offshore wind, we also see that similar strong environment in onshore wind, in battery technologies and solar as well. So we do see that Poland is a very strong potential hub for our expansion in Central Europe.
So probably I am too negative. Okay, that's great. Is there a way to compare Polish offshore wind market? It is young. It is, as you mentioned before, your project is the first one that is actually being built right now on the sea. But maybe there are already some similarities between our market and other markets in Europe or in different countries, different continents.
Well, look, all of offshore wind is young. It is a young industry. We've been involved in offshore wind now since about over 10 years ago now, but nevertheless, that we're one of the most experienced. So the whole offshore sector has grown up together. What we've been really pleased to see in Poland is the continued delivery of the program. So, for example, in other markets we have seen failed auctions, we've seen governments that have perhaps been slow to respond to some challenges from the market, but Poland is actually delivering on what it has said, which we see as a really positive signal for our continued investment in this country.
I think maybe our politicians knows that there's no way back from offshore wind.
There's, offshore wind will always be part of the energy mix, but an energy mix is just that. An energy mix will always involve other technologies. We strongly believe that offshore wind is a very large growth opportunity for this part of the Baltic Sea. One of the things that we look for as a global investor is diversity of regulatory regimes, but also geography and the physical conditions of sites. Because if it's not windy in the North Sea, maybe it's windy here in the Baltic Sea, which is a very it adds strongly to our resilience as a business.
And what about financial support schemes in different countries? Is it very important for global developers right now?
I would have to say yes, of course. The support system is very, very important. One of the attractiveness of Poland is not only the strong support system, but also the way that the Polish government listened to the industry and developed a support system that really works. So, for example, having euro-denominated CFDs, which allowed a lot more incoming investment from international banks, from European banks, and that actually enabled projects to get constructed quite effectively. So yes, it's important, but what's most important is that actually the government and industry work together to come up with regulation which is compatible with the risks that both parties are taking.
Mm-hmm. Northland was one of the first foreign companies that started to cooperate with Polish companies on this young offshore wind sector in Poland. What are lessons that you can draw from cooperations with Polish companies, both private and public? Are we easy to work with?
Well, look, we work with our partner Orlen, who is very much the national champion here,
yes,
and we are absolutely delighted with that partnership. And what I would say as the most important aspect of that partnership is transparency, openness, collaborative approach. That type of approach to doing business, that can transcend anything to do with regulation or complications, because it enables you to get over the challenges which will inevitably happen when developing the first of a kind project as we are. But no, actually we very much find Polish companies very easy to work with, and as I say, we intend to do far more in this country over the coming years.
But basically you have to teach us how to do all the offshore wind related things. Was that a challenge? Because we were totally a greenfield market.
It's always a challenge. Everyone has to learn something for the first time, but in the medical profession there's a phrase, see one, do one, teach one. So, we're actually, as part of our development of Baltic Power, we've been really impressed how we've been able to develop the supply chain. On Monday I was at Vestas' factory at Szczecin and been very impressed to see how many local employees they employ. It's an entirely Polish workforce. This is really growing the sector, and I think it is that investment in people, because ultimately it's people who deliver projects. And we're also seeing a lot of Polish expats who have been working on overseas projects who are now have opportunities to move back home and work on projects in Poland. So I think knowledge transfer is an ongoing process. We are learning, and we are also continuing to work with our partners in that respect.
Mm-hmm. As we mentioned a couple of times, Baltic Power is the very first project of such kind in Poland. Does your involvement in this project give you any competitive advantage in Poland with other projects, or maybe on some neighboring markets?
Well, look, we as Northland, we don't invest in projects, we invest in markets. Mm-hmm. So our investment is in the country of Poland, in this whole region, and the investment in Baltic Power has given us exceptional understanding of how to do business in Poland, what the opportunities are elsewhere. We're intending to significantly grow our base here in our central offices in Warsaw. We're intending to grow that, and we're intending to do much more here, both in Poland and potentially in surrounding geographies as well.
You said a great thing that you are investing in the market, not in a project. But right now in Poland we have this growing subject of repolonization, that's proper translation, of not only this industry, of the whole industry, right? Our politics wants us to create projects, to create industry without help of foreign partners, if that's possible. Is that a risk for Northland Power?
We don't see it as a risk. There's no one answer. There's no one right size to what is the level of involvement in different countries. As I've mentioned, the Baltic Power project has been instrumental in creating investment into Polish jobs, manufacturing facilities, suppliers. Those suppliers, one of the things that we would really like to see more of is Polish suppliers working internationally. That actually the offshore wind market is by its very nature international. Mm-hmm. You're building in the sea. If you're building in the middle of the Baltic Sea, it's very little different if you're pointing in from Sweden, or you're pointing east from Denmark, or you're pointing north from Poland. So we we totally believe and support the growth in Polish industry. And that is something which benefits all of us, because ultimately what we want is a long-term sustainable business here in Poland. But also, we would hope that, as well as what you're talking about, that the Polish wind industry also looks outside of its borders, and how can we actually create opportunities for Polish companies to invest in other countries as well.
Great. One last question. Because you are cooperating with Orlen on Baltic Power project, and Orlen has this five next permits, next localizations from this so-called second phase of Polish offshore wind. Are you interested in cooperating on other projects from this second phase with Orlen as well, or maybe are there any talks about it already?
Look, I'm not going to talk about specific discussions with anyone, but as I mentioned before, Poland and offshore wind are key growth areas for us. We want to continue to grow in Poland. Our relationship with Orlen is one of the most important partnerships we have in our business, and we want to evolve that as much as possible. So we will intend to grow in offshore wind over the coming years, and then we will intend to grow in different technologies as well.
Fantastic. Fingers crossed, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much.